things that cost mechanical energy when running, the fight against gravity is the most costly. So it's easy to think that you should minimize vertical movement as it costs the most energy. And the easiest way to get runners to reduce the up and down movement is to get them to have a slightly higher cadence. But because I don't like simple truth, when the reality is usually so much more complicated, I'm going to tell you what it also can look like. Here's an example from one of my clients who saved energy by moving much more up and down. As I said, one of the easiest ways to reduce the up and down movement is to increase your cadence. And this was something that this runner took to heart. On the first test, he had a cadence of 193 steps per minute. And that is the smaller dark blue arrow. By slightly changing the way he moved, the cadence was lowered to 185 steps per minute. So a higher cadence results in less up and down movement, and this means that this runner should move more up and down now with the lower cadence. And this was also the case. In the first test, he moved his center of mass 51.9 millimeters vertically, and in the later tests, he moved it 74.2 millimeters, the bigger light blue arrow. So he actually moved just over 22 millimeters more up and down, about 0.9 inches from the start with a higher cadence. And that is per stride. Think of how many steps you take per minute and then how many minutes you run. That's very many thousands of steps every time you run. And then multiply the numbers of steps with 22 millimeters, 0.9 inches, and that is a lot of extra energy consumption. Remember that it is the vertical movement that costs the most energy. And here is a runner who moves 43% more up and down. It just has to cost more energy. When he now lands from a higher altitude, he will of course also land with greater force. Yes, you can also see how much the vertical forces has gone up. And yes, there are links between vertical forces and injury risk. But then there's the stretch shortening cycle, the rubber band effect, where you can charge energy into the body's elastic structures, which you then receive in return. You can get back up to about 50% of the energy you put in these structures. And if you want to run a little faster and efficiently, this is very important. But if you don't pull out any rubber bands, you don't get as much energy in return. The higher vertical forces also contribute to a shorter contact time. And the shorter contact time is also better because it contributes to the elastic energy return. This means that the low vertical forces in the first test with a higher cadence contributed to an energy return of only 7.3%. The threshold for leaving the poor category is 15%. So if this runner's energy return had been doubled, he would still be in the poor category. But on the second run, thanks to higher vertical forces, he got back 35.5% and ended up in the excellent category. Well, despite much more bouncing, the short contact time and higher energy return meant that this runner went from energy class B to an A+. Well, but doesn't a higher vertical force put more stress on the body? Yes, it does. Does it increase the risk of injury? Probably, although it's not completely certain. But it's all about what you want. If you want to run a little faster, you simply have to put more strain on your body. The good thing is that the body, especially with some training, is very good at handling these kinds of loads. Just because you started doing biceps curls with a dumbbell and goes from, 3 kilos 7 pounds to 6 kilos 14 pounds, you will not automatically get injured in your biceps, even if you actually double the load on the muscle. Forces can be good if we can handle them. However, If you have double herniated discs and a new hip joint and are not interested in running so fast, it may be the best to reduce the forces in your body when running. But don't think that large vertical forces are always the cause of injury. This is certainly not the case. Just because you reduce vertical forces doesn't mean you'll get rid of an injury. And I have done videos about that as well. So it can be different for different runners and also for different paces, and very different depending on what you want to achieve with your running or with the adjustment of your running technique. But it is not the case, as is often said, that a larger up and down movement is automatically bad. Always go where the numbers and studies leads you. Okay, let me see now. 22 millimeters, it's multiplied by... No, it's divided by... Ooh, maybe I should just ignore saying things in inches. Oh, it's such an incredibly clumsy unit of measurement, and so few people use it. Hardly nobody. No, I'll do it. I have to think about the runners in Myanmar that subscribes to my channel. One more time. 22 millimeters, 10 and... I truly hope you liked that video, and if you did, please click the like button and maybe also the subscribe button. And feel free to check out all the other content I have here on my channel. And maybe you are also interested in my online course. You'll find it at fredrikzillen.com.